What's up viewers, today we are here again with the ZimaBoard 2 with a new operating system specially designed for NAS servers and well suited for the ZimaBoard hardware. This is GEAK OS and it's intelligent storage simplified by AI. For anybody who hasn't heard of it, GEAK OS is a fairly new NAS operating system. It's built on Debian and it works on x86 hardware only right now, so no ARM support. So don't try to flash this onto a Raspberry Pi or one of your Android boxes, it won't happen. The whole pitch is, it's lightweight, it has private cloud with heavy Docker integration and some local AI features baked in. It features photo face recognition, local document search, that kind of thing, all running on your own hardware instead of somebody's cloud. The desktop version is free forever, and there are paid plans if you want additional features starting around $5 a month. Now, a quick run through of its hardware requirements. So its minimum system requirements are a 64-bit x86 processor. It needs at least 8GB of RAM, 64GB of storage space, and a UEFI BIOS. For optimal performance, it recommends an Intel Core i3 processor or equivalent, 16GB of RAM or over, 120GB of storage space, NAS enterprise hardware with dedicated HDD or SDD, 1GB or 2.5GB Ethernet LAN port, and a UEFI plus GPT partition table. So to meet its optimal hardware performance recommendation, I'm running this on the ZimaBoard 2. For those who don't know, this is IceWhale's little single board server featuring an Intel N150 quad-core twin lake CPU that boosts up to 3.6 GHz. It comes with LPDDR5 memory, dual 2.5GB Ethernet LAN ports, 2 SATA 3.0 ports, a PCI Express 3.0 X4 slot, and it's passively cooled with its aluminum chassis. It also comes with an optional cooling fan. It sips power idling around 3 to 4 watts. The important part for this review is that it's got an onboard eMMC storage and it's got 2 SATA ports. So GEAK OS recommends that you install the operating system on a separate dedicated drive. The installation process formats and wipes whatever drive you install it on. So in the case of the ZimaBoard 2, you don't want to format and erase the ZimaOS default operating system on its internal storage. GEAK OS provides 2 ways to install. There is a bootable USB installer with a graphical wizard, and there is a one-line command installer if you already have Debian Linux or Ubuntu running. For this video, I'm doing the bootable USB installation method because I'll be running it on a fresh, clean drive, and honestly, that's how most people watching would prefer to do it. So to build the USB installation disk, you first have to download the GEAK OS image file from off of their official website so you can flash it. They recommend Rufus or Balena Etcher software for the installation process. So I'm using Rufus, and in Rufus you simply select your drive from the drop-down list. You then click the select button and navigate to where you downloaded the image, and click the start button to begin flashing the image. Don't touch any of these settings unless your development board or Windows hardware such as a mini PC only reads a special type of image partition. Once completed, the progress bar will switch to green and state that it is ready. Safely eject your drive from your computer and plug it into your x86 device, in this case the ZimaBoard 2. To install the software onto your PC or this ZimaBoard 2, you have to access its BIOS screen, and to do this, you have to connect a keyboard. As soon as you begin booting up, you would want to tap the delete button, or on some PCs F1 or F2. This should take you to your BIOS screen. Once the installation disk is plugged in via USB, you simply navigate with the direction keys to the top last menu called Save and Exit. Then scroll down to the boot override section, and there you will see the installation disk you created. It would usually start with UEFI-OS followed by the name of your flash drive or external drive. You highlight it and hit the Enter key on the keyboard to begin the installation process. At the first blue screen, make sure Install GEAK OS is highlighted and click Enter. One thing to note is that after the blue screen, you will get a black screen with a blinking cursor in the top left corner for at least 1 minute. At first I thought this was a malfunction, but after testing many times I came to realize it's part of the process. So give the black screen a minute or two, and then you would see the GEAK OS installer wizard. So to start the wizard, you click Next, and you will be taken to a very important screen. On this screen is where you will select which drive to install GEAK OS. One thing I do appreciate is that GEAK OS, unlike Ubuntu, Chrome OS, and FidoOS, they list all of the drive connected to this device, displaying their names, size, and type so that you cannot get confused or make an error. Because if you select the wrong drive, you could end up erasing the operating system or any data on any of those drives. So on this screen, here you can see that I have a Western Digital 500GB SATA SSD, the Realtek external storage drive where I created the GEAK OS installation disk on, and you have eMMC, which is the internal storage of the ZimaBoard 2. So you don't want to select the eMMC internal storage nor the installation disk drive. You want to select a free spare drive that you designated for this installation process. So I would select my Western Digital 500GB drive and click Next. Next, you have the partition mode selection. You get two options, System Only or System plus Data. System Only just puts the OS on the drive. System plus Data carves the same drive into a hidden system partition, and the rest will be your usable storage space. I'm going with System plus Data for this demonstration. It allocates 64GB to the operating system, and the remainder of the drive becomes your data partition. After install, that 64GB system chunk hides itself, and all of your files live on the data side. So if you ever factory reset or install, it will offer to keep that data partition intact. You also have a swap option. If you have got 8GB of RAM or more, skip this swap option. Under 8GB, you can set some swap to keep things stable. My ZimaBoard 2 has enough RAM, so I don't need to swap. Then you have the final confirmation screen. Once you have your correct drive selected and your partition settings are satisfied, you select the I understand that this process will erase all data on the drive checkbox and click Start Install. Once completed, the wizard will request that you reboot the system. I recommend that you select the shutdown option and remove the installation disk. If you are using the ZimaBoard 2, the BIOS will automatically set the new GEAK OS installation as the first boot device. However, if you are installing it on another PC with other drives, you will be required to set the GEAK OS as the first boot up device. If you are running GEAK OS on the ZimaBoard 2 or another Windows PC, there is something you must first understand. You are not going to access and operate the operating system directly on that said ZimaBoard 2 or PC with a mouse and keyboard like you would on a Windows operating system. You have to access GEAK OS like a server from an IP address on another PC. This is how NAS servers function. So the ZimaBoard 2 will sit comfortably in a corner or on your server rack connected via a LAN cable on the same home network, and using the IP address GEAK OS gives you on this screen, you enter that into a browser on your mobile phone, desktop or laptop to configure its first login, where you have to set a new admin username and password. So here we are at the GeakOS desktop or launcher user interface, and before I go any further, there is something you should know when using the GeakOS on the ZimaBoard 2 or any other PC hardware. The ZimaBoard 2 only has 2 SATA ports, and the developers of GeakOS recommends that you use their software on a separate drive. However, that is not going to work if you are looking to set up a NAS home server because you cannot connect multiple drives to configure in RAD because you only have one spare SATA port. So this leaves you with 3 options. The first is to install a really large drive on the spare SATA port. The second is to find an M.2 PCI Express adapter that can host multiple M.2 NVMe cards and use bifurcation. However, I've already tried this method and it doesn't work because the BIOS does not support bifurcation. The third solution would be install GeakOS on the eMMC internal storage. Now, I admire GeakOS' respect for proprietary hardware by recommending to their users to install it on a separate drive and not interfere with the ZimaOS. However, the only way you can get RAD to work properly is if you install GeakOS as a system OS only during the configuration and overwrite ZimaOS. So this is what I did, and there is no need to panic because ZimaOS can be easily installed by simply downloading the image from off of their website and repeating the installation process to remove once again GeakOS and reinstall ZimaOS. So this is the user interface and it's very simple and easy to navigate. Starting from the top, you have a user guide. Next, you have a file browser. You have an album application where you can access your photo library. You have a built-in media player for those who love to play self-hosted videos. You have its settings area, which I'll get to in just a moment. It comes with an app center. You have external share links. I believe this is to facilitate allowing others to access the server. And you have a backup app called Time Machine. However, it only has instructions for Mac users. And finally, you have your recycle bin. So to set up your NAS server, you need to configure your connected drives into a storage pool. Unfortunately, you can only configure drives connected via SATA ports and not via USB. To do this, open the settings area, click on storage on the left menu, and click the blue create storage button. Select the drives you would like to pool by checking their boxes, then choose your storage type. GeakOS gives you a few options here. Basic just runs a single drive independently, so that allows if that drive fails, no redundancy. Linear combines multiple drives into one large pool for maximum capacity, but security is poor, so if one drive fails, you lose everything in the pool. RAID 0 or stripping needs at least 2 drives, and it spreads data across them for better read and write performance, but it's also poor on security. A single drive failure can cause data loss across the array. RAID 1 or mirror disk needs at least 2 drives and duplicates your data across them, and this is high security since your data survives even if all but one drive in the mirror fails. There are also RAID 5, 6, and 10 options if you have 3 or 4 drives and want fault tolerance with more usable capacity, but basic, linear, and RAID 1 cover what most home users will need. If you have basic PC knowledge, you might be tempted to look at this setup as master and slave, but it isn't. GeakOS's redundancy comes purely from the RAD mode you select and not from which drive happens to be larger. Once you have picked the mode that fits your needs, click the confirm button to begin formatting. So for this demonstration, I've selected the linear format just to show the combined file size capacity. So I'm using a 1TB and a 500GB in RAID format. So the format completed successfully, and now you have access to a combined 1.5TB RAID drive. Just remember, this mode is not secure and you can lose data if OneDrive fails. For file sharing and remote access, this is where GeakOS is actually pretty strong. In the file manager, there's a remote mount feature where you can pull in shares from other devices over 3 protocols: SMB, WebDAV, and NFS. So it plays nice with basically any network storage you already have on the network. So to test this, I set up an Android TV box that features a Samba server and connected an external hard drive to its USB port. So in GeakOS, to gain easy access to storage on devices connected on the same network, you simply perform a scan using the remote mount feature, and it will detect every device that's on the network that enabled sharing via one of the 3 protocols. In this case, I'm using Samba server. So here it detects my Oracle external hard drive and it mounts and saves the folder. So I can now easily access the folder directly without having to browse and search for it every time. If you want to share the NAS with family or friends without anyone stepping on each other's files, User Management feature handles that. Open Settings, then User Management, and create user. Give them a username and password, and there's an option to force a password reset on first login. Each user gets their own sandbox, and your file and theirs never mix, which is exactly what you want. From the admin side, you can see each user's storage usage, assign them to groups, disable or delete accounts. So disabling cuts access but keeps the data so you can re-enable later. Deleting wipes everything permanently, so think before you hit delete. So if you would like to access your NAS server remotely while you are away from home, probably on vacation, at work, or just need remote access into your server to access something really important from another network or on your mobile phone using mobile data, then GeakOS provides GEAK Link. To set this up, in the settings area, open the tab called Network Services and scroll down to where it says GEAK Link Remote Access. By default, it will be disabled, and once you toggle the switch, it will ask you to enter an email address where it will send you a confirmation code, which you will then enter back into the text field where it will confirm and create a GEAK Cloud account and give you a GEAK ID. Using this ID and your login credentials, you can now proceed to another device, let's say your laptop or mobile phone, and install the GeakOS client app to gain remote access to the server. So to test this properly, I went to a motel just to get away from the house and to use a network that was not my own outside of the NAS server's network. So here you can see I installed on my laptop with my extended monitor the GeakOS client app. So now I will just switch over to my screen recorder so you can see it properly. So as you can see, here I have my GEAK ID, my account username, and my password. And once you enter, you will gain full access to your NAS server. I'm using the motel's public Wi-Fi, which isn't the greatest, but I can still access my server and browse my files and documents. So with the GEAK Link, there is no port forwarding, DDNS, or complicated router configurations. Media, in my opinion, is the most critical undertaking of a home network NAS server system because the majority of what is going to be stored on those drives will be media, such as photos and videos. To handle this, GeakOS has its own media application called Video Hub. And to be clear, this is not a Plex or Jellyfin frontend, it's its own thing. There is also a separate player client called Cine Now. So you point the Video Hub at a media folder and it scrapes metadata and posters and builds you a library with movie and TV categories. The single most important technical point in this whole review is that GeakOS Video Hub Playback is built around client-side decoding. That means the heavy lifting happens on whatever device you are watching the content on, not necessarily the ZimaBoard. So your playback experience depends on your network and your device, such as your phone, your TV, and whichever browser you are using, as the files are being fed from the server. The support team at GEAK OS informed that STRM playback is now supported and custom poster uploads is now available in the latest release.
Sound moves around you in three-dimensional space with breathtaking audio quality. It brings the on-screen action alive and immerses you in every moment.
Now onto the fun part. If you are a TV box enthusiast and would like to access videos stored on this home server via GEAK OS so that you can use its built-in Dolby Vision and its Dolby and DTS audio decoders, once you have a media player that can access your home network, you simply scan for your local NAS server, select it, and enter your credentials to access GEAK OS. Here I'm using my updated custom TV box player that now features local network access features. During this test, I discovered that I cannot get Dolby Atmos and DTS audio over the network. I can get 4K HDR10, AV1, HLG, and Dolby Vision with stereo audio only. Next up is the App Center, but don't expect a typical app store like you have on your phone. Instead, it's a launcher for built-in tools and a visual hub for Docker. If you want basic utilities like an Office editor or PDF tool, you just click Open. But if you want to run proper home server apps like Jellyfin or Pi-hole, you use the built-in Docker Composer Manager. You just paste your configuration code, hit deploy, and watch it install live. It takes a second to get used to the new layout, but having a visual way to handle Docker without touching a command line is a big win. Now, the App Center, though different, provides a simple yet innovative way to deploy. The App Center has a visual Docker Composer Manager called Dockage, where you paste standard YAML straight into the GUI, and it automatically sets your host to container port mappings, bind mounts for persistent storage, and you can watch the deployment logs live. For anybody who normally lives in a terminal for this, having a clean GUI that doesn't hide what's happening is a real win. This is where GeakOS competes with CasaOS and ZimaOS crowd. To test this properly, I'm deploying one service you may already be familiar with, which is Jellyfin, and I'm recording the whole path live. So using AI, you can ask it to give you the Jellyfin YAML code with port map configuration. You copy it, and in a dockage you click Compose. On the right, you select all and erase what's already there and paste in your code. The only thing you need to do is give your stack a name. All other fields will be automatically populated. What's also a nice feature is once the deployment is completed, you don't have to search for the URL with the IP address to open your new Jellyfin page. You simply click on these port shortcuts right here, and it will open a new window with your Jellyfin page setup. For AI, GeakOS markets itself as an AI NAS OS. What that actually means in practice is that you get local AI photo categorization, face recognition that auto-builds albums of people, and local document and text search, all running on the ZimaBoard 2 and not over a cloud API. There is also native support in the app catalog for deploying local models and AI agents. However, there are limitations. On an N150 with integrated graphics, don't expect this to be a large language model powerhouse out of the box. After numerous tests, each model I installed either gave me an inadequate memory error or it fails to complete a simple task such as finding photos on the NAS drives. From experience, running models such as Gemma or QN requires some GPU computing power to run smoothly. In summary, what's good about this operating system? Well, the install is one of the cleaner NAS installers I've used. The Docker Compose GUI is well done. Features such as SMB, WebDAV, and NFS remote mounting covers pretty much anything already on your network. Multi-user sandboxing is useful. You get native clients on every platform. The native video hub is generally easier and faster to set up than Plex or Jellyfin from scratch. The local AI on your own hardware angle is a real selling point once your hardware has adequate GPU processing power. And it runs silent and cool on the ZimaBoard 2. And for a low power home server, the N150 and this OS are a good match. The drawbacks are it's x86 only and no ARM support sidelines a big chunk of the cheap SBC and TV box crowd. Video Hub is new, so you are not going to replace a mature Plex or Jellyfin stack for power users. It's a young platform overall, so the global community and English documentation are thin compared to True NAS or RAID. A lot of the knowledge base is still centered on the Chinese home lab scene. With that said, GeakOS states that its roadmap includes continued improvements to Docker and virtualization, a more capable private AI knowledge base with broader AI features, and a stronger English documentation and global community support is in the works. And the AI feature is cool, but you need a real GPU hardware behind them for anything heavy. So viewers, there you have it. This was my review of the GeakOS NAS Server AI operating system. If you would like to check out their software, I placed links in the description below, along with a link to the ZimaBoard 2 as they go hand in hand. But remember, you can also install this on a regular Windows desktop PC hardware, or you can use something more convenient, such as a powerful Windows Mini PC, as the install process is the same. So be sure to check out the links in the description. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support is always greatly appreciated, and it costs you nothing to click the subscribe button and to give the video a thumbs up. So stay connected and see you in the next one.